From a simple perspective of time, it seems like not too long has passed. But looking back on this journey, I actually have a feeling of great changes. With his feet once again stepping onto the land, Heracles felt as if he was in another world. Unlike when he left, now he had no opponents in the mortal realm at all. Giant lion, nine-headed snake, sea monsters, divine eagle, sphinx, Ladin, the 6 monstrous offspring left by Typhon. Omen of Death Star, Ares, these gods and demons representing either order or madness. Treading the earth, boundless strength surged into his body, as if the once Mount Othrys held up the heavens from the ground. In this kind of invisible blessing, the great hero once thought of the feeling of borrowing divine power. It's just that his insight was not enough, so he couldn't measure which one was more powerful. Andy, with such power, I should be able to reach the spirit realm smoothly, right? Who knows, the underworld is not the mortal realm. There were originally no such strong law constraints there. Of course, now it's uncertain. The puppet's mouth opened and closed, but the voice reached the mind through the spirit. I can sense that not long ago, there was a great upheaval on Mount Olympus. Several incredibly terrifying forces collided with each other. At the same time, the order of the mortal realm also began to permeate the underworld. But how much effect it actually has, we can only know after we enter. Of course, Andy reminded with a smile. Reaching this point, he also hoped the other wouldn't fail again. Though your power is strong now, you must remember, all these are external forces. External forces are reliable but not dependable. Moreover, to those truly great, your skills are still far lacking. Like the Divine King? The great hero asked. Like the Divine King. Nodding slightly, Andy spoke without any respect. Without this power, he would have long lost his throne. All right, let's inquire around nearby. I only know there is a passage here connecting to the underworld and not the underworld, but exactly where I'm not sure. In this wilderness area, just find a large lake. You should easily see a naiad or oceanides. Oceanus's ability to have children surpasses the world. It's something even the roadside wild grass knows. There are not many true god-level oceanides. Heracles knew a dozen, some unknown ones might be numerous. But at the territorial god level, there are countless. Not long after, in a forest less than 100 miles from the coast, the great hero found a large lake. As expected, after releasing his powerful aura, the lake water rippled slightly. Soon, a lightly dressed goddess emerged from the waters. Who are you? Very curious, as the territorial god bound to this lake, this was only the second human the Oceanides had seen. Are you a golden human? Or perhaps, are you willing to stay? Stay. Slightly stunned at the words, Heracles shook his head. I am not a golden human, nor do I intend to stay. In fact, I just came to ask for directions. Is that so? All right then. Somewhat disappointed, the Oceanides showed no hint of unfamiliarity at this first meeting. Are all you humans like this, powerful yet not knowing how to enjoy, only knowing to do what you feel needs to be done? Us humans. Surprised again, Heracles couldn't help but ask. Could it be that before me, your excellency has seen other humans as powerful as I am? Not boasting, but the great hero indeed hadn't met another mortal on his level before. Unexpectedly, the Oceanides nodded again, confirming with divine perception. Yes, it's just that you give people a different feeling. After a moment's thought, the goddess slowly described. You give me the feeling of a towering mountain, majestic and heavy, making one feel very safe. He gives me the feeling of a warm sun, shining upon the creatures of the earth. It benefits those who follow his will and dazzles those who go against it. It's just that he hasn't made up his mind yet, so he hasn't spread his light upon the world, and you also have your own entanglements. I can see that. So to get back to the point, brave and fearless hero, won't you reconsider? Reconsider what? Naturally, to spend a wonderful night with me. Understandably, the Oceanides winked at him as if Dionysus beside them didn't exist at all. To sleep with someone as extraordinary as you? I could boast to my sisters for 100 years. So, won't you give it a try? Or do all you humans have no interest in this, in which case your lives are too dull? Leaving quickly, looking a bit hastily. Slightly different from the original myth, perhaps because he was born much earlier and did not mingle in the human kingdom, Heracles was clearly a bit overwhelmed by the Oceanides' advances. Without further inquiry, after finding out the entrance to the underworld, the great hero left the unnamed lakeside amidst a clear laugh. He didn't know what treatment the golden humanity who had been here before received, but it was probably similar. Following behind, Dionysus was visibly a bit awkward, partly because he was ignored and partly because the recent encounter somewhat affected the grand image of the deity. Although indeed many goddesses are like this, perhaps the image of deities in Heracles' eyes isn't very grand either. With a silent complaint, Dionysus casually found a topic to let the incident pass quickly. Heracles, is there really another human in this world who can match you? I thought you were the strongest human ever, with none to surpass you. Strongest is not certain. There is no absolute before time. It's just that golden humanity. I'm not sure what his deal is either. Slightly shaking his head, the great hero was indeed quite curious about this matter. He could reach where he was today with his own factors but also couldn't do without the opportunities he encountered along the way. Of course, Heracles did not, therefore, deny his own abilities, especially since the so-called heavenly destiny or bloodline, like one's wisdom or personality, is an inherent part, the components of what makes a person a person. There is no point in forcefully separating the two, and the great hero wouldn't be so stubborn. But speaking of golden humanity, Heracles couldn't help but recall the image he once saw about the goddess of the magic net. Perhaps the person the Oceanides saw was the same as the one described by the master of the magic net. All the way west, after crossing the third great river, over 5 mountains, at the foot of the 6th mountain, Heracles finally saw that cave leading to the underworld. Bottomless, faint, gusts of cold wind howling. Not far from the cave, the great hero saw a simple temple with a statue of Hades inside. Unlike most statues in the material world, the statue of the underworld king had no face, just an approximate human shape. And on the stone statue, Heracles detected a faint breath of abandonment of life. What's this? This is a wraith. Opening his mouth to explain, Prometheus slowly said, skeletons and corpses regain vitality and move like the living. They dwell beneath the earth, love moonlight, and dislike sunlight. This statue should have been built occasionally on the surface by some wraiths born of wisdom, but compared to humans, their craftsmanship is still too rough. Wraiths, huh? Silently muttering a rarely appearing word on this continent. Looking at the cave entrance ahead, Heracles leaped down. The roads leading to the underworld varied, some were reached step by step, some were connected from a certain underground location, and some were like this, directly jumped into, reaching it in endless descent. The first two require facing potential enemies encountered along the way, which might be tribes dwelling in the underground or evil gods hiding within. The latter simply tests one's strength. If not enough, it's easy to turn into a puddle of mush upon landing. Fortunately, none of these are problems for Heracles. The wind roared past his ears, unaware of how long passed, perhaps half a day, perhaps half a month. When about to hit the ground, the great hero stepped mid-air, slowing the descent with a sonic boom, ultimately accompanied by a bang. Sound, he felt the changing rules of his surroundings. The sky was misty. Only in the extreme distance, a faint purple lunar silhouette shone. The earth was a stretch of gray soil, occasional water sounds from unknown sources. On a man-made or perhaps wraith-made ancient path, both sides were covered with pomegranate vines. Mint filled the remaining land, gently swaying in the wind. And to either side lay infinite, eternal darkness and night, silently inhaling and exhaling. Even just a glance invoked a deep reverence from one's soul. This place is the underworld? Scanning the surroundings, no trace of wraiths was found. Looking further ahead, in the direction the ancient path extended, Heracles saw a large gate hidden in the mist. The gate of the underworld, the portal segregating the netherworld from outside, rumored to be guarded by the three-headed dog, the child of Typhon, in front. While behind it, there was supposedly a formidable black knight guarding it, forbidding anyone unauthorized from passing between it and the mortal realm. Of course, Heracles didn't think they could stop him, regardless of which one. Stepping forward, without drawing a weapon, he planned to show courtesy before using force. Hopefully, the guards here wouldn't be like those sea nymphs of the mortal realm, restricting him from entering the netherworld here. After only a few steps, Heracles suddenly halted. For some reason, looking at the towering, majestic gate of the underworld, a sense of warning surged within him. No, it wasn't the gate of the underworld, but something else lowering his gaze. Aided by the Caucasus divine eagle's pupil, the great hero's vision instantly multiplied 1,000-fold. Piercing through the mist filled with magic power and negative energy, the beast hidden behind fell into his view. Three-headed demon dog, Cerberus, is it really it? Not understanding why, in the great hero's perception, though formidable, it couldn't compare to Ladon's might. Yet from this great demon's presence, Heracles undoubtedly felt an incredibly powerful sense of threat. As if once it erupted, even the invulnerable giant lion's skin wouldn't save his life. Bang! What happened? Why did you stop? Following closely behind, with a commotion, Dionysus also arrived in the underworld. Unlike the great hero's keenness, he didn't sense anything unusual. Frowning at Dionysus' question, Heracles didn't know how to answer. Should he be honest? But it was merely his feeling without evidence. And on Cerberus' part, he couldn't find the source of the threat at all. Stop searching, you won't find it. Who? Expression changed. The bronze stick in the great hero's hand, startling Dionysus beside him. Yet scanning his surroundings, Heracles found nothing. As he traveled, Heracles had come to understand the god king Zeus, who was quite possibly his biological father, quite well. And in his heart, the great hero knew exactly what kind of deity Zeus was. If a mistake was beyond correction, Zeus might indeed abandon seeking accountability for tangible benefits. Of course, this doesn't mean he would shy away from facing the hell three-headed dog. In Heracles' eyes, there was no fear. He would simply switch from brute force to cunning strategy. However, since a mysterious figure had now approached him, the great hero didn't mind considering what this person might want before knowing their true identity. So, you claim to be a deity from the spirit realm. Where are you now, and what do you need me to do? Calmly, Heracles asked directly. Very simple, right now we are both blocked by Cerberus before the underworld. I want to go in, and you want to go in, so even from a standpoint of mutual interest, we share the same goal now. With a voice tinged with laughter, the great hero could almost imagine a smiling youth. And my location, this is what I need you to do. Come to my side. This is the land of eternal night, the domain of the Great One above the stars, the eternal night dominator. I have something to lend you. It can help you solve the challenge of Cerberus. Land of eternal night? His expression shifted slightly. Heracles asked in his heart. Lord Andy, did you hear that voice earlier? What voice? Suddenly puzzled, he quickly learned the details from the mouth of the great hero. As if he realized something, the puppet stopped moving wildly, as if it were a mere dead object. I didn't detect traces of the other party. His divine power should be above mine, and he must wield some strong authority related to souls, which is why he was able to communicate with you without being traced. Yet, he likely hasn't detected my traces either, not because I'm particularly adept at hiding, but because of my consciousness's vessel. This puppet? Heracles asked in his heart, and Andy gave a positive response. Yes, it relates to why I travel and adventure with you. As long as I don't intentionally leak my aura, the other party cannot discover my existence. As for the land of eternal night, don't worry. Do you remember what I once said? You mean Nyx's path. With a bit of recollection, the great hero remembered where he had heard this name. In his first encounter with Amon, Andy had harbored suspicion toward this mysterious individual. C3 to 297. At that time, The other party had mentioned a divine artifact named Hypnos Pen and also brought up the land of eternal night. That was a forbidden zone for living beings, the great dominator's boundary. Any existence trespassing into the land of eternal night would directly face death. Even deities would reap nothing but eternal silence. However, Nick's path was different. It was a correct path, the only way to traverse this forbidden land. Understanding this, Heracles roughly grasped the other's meaning. You mean, this mysterious person is on Nick's path? Yes, that is the only explanation. Speaking slowly, and's tone was full of seriousness. Other than that, even deities born under the eternal night may not be able to move safely within it. Though in thousands of years, aside from the legendary god of sleep Hypnos, I've never heard of any deity's traces within it. Nodding slightly, now knowing the reason, the great hero dismissed his worries. After explaining it briefly to the uncomprehending Dionysus, he directly headed for the land of eternal night. Aside from Mother Night herself, Chaos, no one can wield the power of the land of eternal night. So unless it's the primordial gods themselves playing tricks on him, the speaking entity is merely a guest. Walking forward, he reached the junction of nether moonlight and the night. Heracles grasped the bronze rod, feeling that thread of connection to the material world, and stepped in without hesitation. Perhaps because he was invited, or perhaps because mortals were never shunned. After a whirlwind, when his vision cleared again, the great hero was already beneath the night sky. Stars dotted the sky, while the somnus blossom bloomed beside him. Under the silent night, an unexplainable terror quietly bred. Turning around, Heracles could no longer see the path he came from. Though he had merely taken a step inside, without proper guidance, he would be forever lost here. Fortunately, the connection between the imagery of holding the sky and the material world still existed. Glancing over this silent world, the great hero's mouth slightly opened. I've arrived. Where are you? HM? My voice. No sound emerged, because in the peaceful night no sound was permitted, at least not for Heracles. Thankfully, before he could resort to other means to locate the mysterious speaker, the person appeared before him. Don't waste your effort. This is the authority of silence, belonging under the eternal night. Silencing sound is merely its basic capability, its true power. You wouldn't wish to witness it. Warm and courteous, his appearance was handsome. The ash-haired youth appeared silently and conveyed his voice in a way beyond ordinary understanding. No need to speak. Just listen to me. The hell three-headed dog Cerberus has 3 heads, one resting, one eating or thinking, and one watching over all directions. After gaining part of the rights to guard the underworld portal, almost no movement can be hidden from its senses. Throughout his journey, Heracles has come to understand God King Zeus, who is likely his biological father, quite well. Regarding what kind of god he actually is, the great hero has a clear understanding in his heart. If a mistake is irrecoverable, he is truly capable of abandoning accountability for tangible benefits. Of course, this doesn't mean he won't dare to face the hell three-headed dog. There is no fear in Heracles' eyes. He will merely switch from brute force to cleverness. However, now that a mysterious person has approached him, the great hero does not mind taking a look at their intentions first, unsure of their true identity. Then, the deity claiming to be from the spirit realm. Where are you now, and what do you need me to do for you? With calm words, Heracles directly asked. Very simple. Now both you and I are blocked by Cerberus at the before the underworld. I want to go in, you also want to go in, so even from a perspective of interest, we now share the same goal. The voice carried a hint of laughter. The great hero could almost imagine a smiling young silhouette. As for my location, that's what I need you to do. Come, join me here. This is the land of eternal night, the realm of the Great One above the stars, the Night Dominator. I have something to lend you. It can help you solve the problem of Cerberus. Land of eternal night? Expression slightly moved. Heracles asked in his heart. Ammon, did you hear the voice just now? What voice? First stunned, Then from the great hero's mouth understood the whole story. As if thinking of something, the puppet stopped moving, as if it were a mere lifeless object. I didn't perceive the traces of the other party. His divine power should be above mine and possesses some strong authority related to the soul. Hence he could evade us and contact you. But he shouldn't have discovered my traces either. Not because I'm particularly good at hiding, but rather due to the carrier of my consciousness. This puppet? Heracles asked in his heart, and Ammon affirmed the answer. Yes, this is related to why I want to travel and adventure with you. As long as I deliberately don't disclose my aura, the other party can't discover my existence. As for the land of eternal night, no need to worry. Do you remember what I once mentioned? You mean Nyx's path. Recalling slightly, the great hero remembered where he heard the name. Upon first meeting Ammon, Ammon had once suspected the origins of this mysterious figure. C3 to 297. At that time, the other party had mentioned a divine artifact called the Hypnos Pen and also talked about the land of eternal night. That is a forbidden area for living beings, the domain of the great dominator. Any entity that ventures into the land of eternal night faces death directly. Even deities can only harvest eternal silence. However, Nyx's path is different. It's a correct path, the only way to transit through this forbidden place. Thinking of this, Heracles roughly understood the implication of the other party. You mean, this mysterious person is on Nyx's path? Yes, that's the only explanation. Slowly spoke Ammon, with a tone full of solemnity. Besides that, even deities once born under eternal night may not be able to move safely within it. Although for thousands of years, other than the legendary god of sleep Hypnos, I have never heard of any deity's traces. With a nod, knowing the details, the great hero relaxed his internal worries. After explaining briefly to Dionysus, who was puzzled, he walked directly towards the land of eternal night. Except for Mother Night herself with chaos, no one can mobilize the power of the land of eternal night. So unless it's the primordial gods themselves playing tricks on him, the existence speaking is only a guest. Continuing forward, he arrived at the intersection of the nether moonlight and the night. Heracles grasped the copper rod, feeling the connection of the slightest celestial symbol to the material world. He stepped into it without hesitation. Perhaps due to being invited, perhaps inherently never rejecting mortals. After an instance of sky spinning and earth shifting, as clarity returned to his view, the great hero found himself beneath the night sky. The stars dotted, sparse somnus blossoms bloomed beside him. Under the silent night, a sense of unnameable horror quietly gave rise. Turning around, Heracles already couldn't see the road on which he came. Though he only stepped inward once, if without proper guidance, he would always be lost here. Fortunately, the connection between the celestial symbol and the material world still exists. Scanning this quiet world, the great hero's lips slightly parted. I'm here. Where are you? My voice. No sound issued forth, for under the quiet night, no sound in a meaningful sense was permitted, at least for Heracles it was so. Fortunately, in the next moment, before he could employ other means to find the speaking mysterious person, the other party arrived in front of him first. Don't waste your efforts. This is the authority of silence, belonging to what lies under eternal night. To make sound vanish is merely its basic ability, while its true power, you wouldn't want to witness it. Gentle and courteous, with handsome appearance, a gray-haired youth appeared silently and conveyed his voice in a manner incomprehensible to ordinary people. No need to speak. Just listen to me. The hell three-headed dog Cerberus has 3 heads, one resting, one eating or thinking, and one watching over all directions. After gaining part of the rights to guard the underworld portal, almost no movement can be hidden from its senses. Both you and I are the same. So, wanting to pass through its watch, we must resolve it, but without truly killing it, for that would only directly trigger the deadly trick left by God King. Fortunately, I have a way to handle it, which is to grant the 3-headed dog a memorable long slumber. In the depths of the land of eternal night, such power exists. Utilizing this power, you can achieve your goal, solving the difficulty Cerberus presents us. With no superfluous words, unlike Zephyros, straightforwardly explained the situation, Hypnos took out a sphere of divine power. Strictly speaking, this is no longer simple divine power, but the product of his leftover strength at birth combined with the breath of the land of eternal night, eventually transforming in his hands into a mysteriously changing instrument. Taking it in hand, the great hero watched it reform into a lyre. It seems you've prepared for a long time. Though still quiet, Heracles believed the other party could understand his meaning. Sure enough, the gray-haired youth merely smiled. Anyone held akin to imprisonment would be like this. I'm always hoping to return to my homeland. As long as you help me leave, then this lyre is the gift I give you. From now on, you can smoothly transit the underworld. Hope what you say is true. Gazing deeply at the youth before him, even without Amon's reminder, Heracles did not trust him much. But it doesn't matter, at least in dealing with Cerberus, both can reach a consensus. As for afterward, if you're deceiving me, then I will show you through action. Who is he? In the underworld, Heracles looked at the gray feathers scattered in the air. The sneak attack by Hypnos was within his expectations, but without En's help, he realized that even knowing the opponent's intentions, he could hardly resist. After all, in the original trajectory, even without personally wielding the dominion of dreams, Hypnos, who was among the 3,000 daimons of dreams, was still able to plot against Zeus with Hera's assistance, so the great hero would naturally be no exception. But since the opponent had already left, he still needed to know the origin of this deity. If nothing unexpected happens, this is an entity from within hell. Andy slowly spoke, offering his opinion. Don't pay too much attention to him. He wouldn't dare stay long in the mortal realm. Did you notice the mark he took? You mean the Divine King's lightning-looking mark? Yes. Nodding slightly, the puppet smiled. It's not something with the power of a strike by Zeus. How could the power of the great divine power rely on just a mark to be supported? There aren't many materials in this world that could achieve such a feat, and that definitely wasn't something the Divine King could create at will. In fact, it's a mark, a trigger, which is why Zeus was relieved to let Cerberus wait in ambush. Because even if Cerberus could not actively trigger this mark, once the aura locked by the mark appeared within range, it could still passively cause the Divine King's response, allowing him to descend with power. But now, not entirely certain, but according to the prayers of a bard follower known to Andy who traveled the continent, something major seemed to have occurred on Mount Olympus. So under such circumstances, if Cerberus doesn't actively trigger the mark to cause a reaction from the Sovereign of Order, it wouldn't cause any change. I understand. Without knowing when the Divine King would focus here again, as long as he carries the mark, he must leave the present world and return to the abyss as soon as possible. Realizing this, Heracles temporarily put the matter aside. He glanced at the slumbering three-headed dog, ultimately doing nothing. Although Cerberus objectively blocked his path, there was no enmity between them. Even if he thought it might want to seize the relic of Typhon's offspring from him, that was still just a possibility. Without the Divine King's mark, Cerberus no longer posed such a strong threat. Friend or foe, the great hero decided to let the future decide that. So carefree? Don't you want its power? In a good mood, Andy asked casually. At least for power obtained in such a way, I'm truly not interested. Shaking his head slightly, Heracles looked beyond the gates of the underworld. To his surprise, the Black Knight and the ferryman of the Styx, who were said to guard here day and night for Hades, were absent. Only a long river surged endlessly, resembling the agonized cries of beings. Don't worry about why they're not here, just move on. In fact, you have another enemy to face. An enemy? Yes, an enemy. Nodding slowly, Andy mentioned the name. Ancient Evil, the Thousand-Faced Soul Eater. C3-168. To successfully cross the River of Oblivion, it's one of the hurdles you cannot avoid. The Thousand-Faced Soul Eater, an ancient evil born during the Typhon disaster. It was formed by the fusion of countless billion souls and sustained by the power descended from the Mother of Flesh, even polluting a few tributaries of the River of Oblivion. However, not long after that great disaster, deities from the spirit realm personally intervened, using the ever-recurring well of reincarnation's power to eliminate the pollution. Yet they could dispel the pollution of the ancient evil, but could not capture the ancient evil itself. Unlike the omen of Death Star, which has a fixed entity and deliberately courts destruction, the thousand-faced Soul Eater composed of countless souls ascending together has no main body. Or rather, its strongest soul body constitutes the main body, but this main body is not indispensable. Every moment, countless evil spirits continue to fight, roar, devour each other, and spread pollution within its body. The pursuit of external souls is its instinct, and chaotic thought is its nature. Even if shattered multiple times by the spirit realm, it always finds a way to survive and then gradually regain great strength. And whenever it regains strength, it will once again spontaneously attack the place where souls gather the most and strongest, the River of Oblivion. And calculating the time since it was last vanquished, its power is about to reach a peak again. Buzz. Damn. What is this thing? 9-ring sorcery, otherworld transmission. Spatial fluctuations. A faint silver light flashed, transforming into a small portal. Stepping through, bathed in nether moonlight, Jordan's face turned ugly. Behind him, the silver-white portal trembled slightly, with some chaotic shrieks reaching deep into the soul emanating from within. Since that day, when he completed the long-prepared plan, capturing the goddess of youth and her divine artifact, Jordan came directly to the underworld. Here, he once interacted with the Dark Elves and even extracted dragon blood for research to explore the mysteries of life. In his plan, this was supposed to be his new base to evade the pursuit of the All-Gods, to calmly obtain immortality and strength. Who would have thought it all ended before it even began? Here, Jordan hadn't stayed long before he was inexplicably found by a terrifying existence. It traversed between the spirit realm and reality, frenzied and evil, leaving Jordan completely defenseless. With no options left, after fleeing unsuccessfully, he could only painfully abandon the idea of staying in the underground world and head to the underworld to temporarily hide. After all, through these days of interaction, he had gained some understanding of this terrifying existence. According to the ancient texts, this was most likely an ancient evil being born during Typhon's disaster. Such an existence could not be killed. One could only wait for it to seek its own death. Sighing, Jordan carried the bronze giant coffin, surveying the environment of the underworld. Unaware that his own memory was actually full of falsehoods, and the so-called plan was full of holes. In fact, the reason why he was targeted by the ancient evil, the thousand-faced Soul Eater, was an already prearranged result, and Jordan thought it was just his bad luck. However, in reality, a fragmented and stitched soul like his was just the favorite delicacy of such ancient evil beings, naturally capable of becoming one of its main souls. And once he was justifiably devoured by the thousand-faced Soul Eater, all clues would end there. As a grand sorceress who schemed everything but eventually fell to luck, Jordan would bear the brunt of all the blame, with no one else able to glimpse the truth behind it. Under the power of the Mother Tree, such soul-stitching would become extraordinarily reasonable. Even if someone could fish it out again, they would still think it was the work of the thousand-faced Soul Eater, rather than someone having split his soul beforehand. Ha! On the vast and boundless plain, scattered bones moved laboriously. Jordan was just about to leave here, to find a secluded place to hide for a while. But at the next moment, a startled sound quietly arose from behind him. Cold sweat instantly seeped from his back, all his senses telling him there was no one else here. But Jordan was sure it was not his auditory hallucination. The nearly instant 7-ring witchcraft, high-level any door, began to construct. This invisible enemy was certainly not something he could handle. Yet before this witchcraft could be released, his consciousness gradually blurred. Standing on the earth, Jordan fell asleep directly, the whole process without the slightest resistance. Thud! Bang! The bronze coffin fell to the ground alongside him, making a noise that drew the attention of several skeletons. The fire of the soul burned between the skulls, and instinct told them that if they could capture the life of the fallen one, they would undergo some kind of transformative change in fate. However, the next moment the void rippled. A gray-haired youth stepped out, casually crushing those mindless lower creatures. Look! What have I stumbled upon? A human grand sorceress tainted with evil aura, and also a heavily wounded, unconscious deity? With a peculiar expression, Hypnos never expected that upon just escaping a predicament, he would encounter such an interesting situation. Youth goddess Hebe, he recognized her aura. Yet now, the daughter of the divine king and the heavenly empress was locked in the bronze coffin, concealing her trace by various means. If it weren't right under his nose, the god of sleep admitted he might not have detected her presence. And this very tight aura isolation was obviously to counter the divine court's investigation. Taking a step forward, Hypnos intended to take some action. Since he encountered this, there was no reason to give it up. If he could bring the youth goddess back to hell, it would count as a great merit. However, his expression changed slightly, and Hypnos suddenly halted. Upon him, the mark previously taken was now shining brightly. And's judgment wasn't quite accurate. In fact, if it wasn't the god of sleep standing here, even with Zeus confined within Olympus, he couldn't possibly take the mark left by the divine king on Cerberus. But before Hypnos himself, these issues were not issues at all. As a deity who in a past fate indeed brought Zeus into a bind, the god of sleep had a way to let this mark fall into an alternate slumber. But the premise was nothing would stimulate it, keeping it in a dormant state. A connection from the bloodline, or the residual aura of law on Hebe? Not very certain, but Hypnos knew he better not attempt taking the opposite party away. Zeus's mark was already very dangerous. Should anything untoward happen, it wouldn't be something a youth goddess could remedy. Tisage, just leave it to that evil creature. It seems to be approaching. An existence that devours living souls, truly a sin. A flicker of disgust flashed beneath his eyes. Hypnos's heart stirred slightly, leaving the aura of the previous human here. Waking up from his dominion, regardless of how it was achieved, was no simple feat. Let them fight it out. As for himself, with a wave of his sleeve, Hypnos whisked away the human. Although from his perspective, this human sorceress's soul seemed to have some issues, it didn't matter. There are many ways to transform into demons. He could very well let the other inherit the memories, born as a new individual. Through this similar to a regestating process, the soul's various defects would no longer exist. Of course, as a price, the newly born being would bear almost no substantial connection to the previous one, only possessing the same memories. So you mean, because no one can judge the trajectory of the evil being, nor can anyone guarantee it won't choose to attack while I'm consuming the magic potion and sneaking into the Styx River. Therefore, the best solution is to destroy the danger at its bud directly, placing the towering bronze pillar horizontally across the Acheron River, successfully crossing this Styx River where the ferryman was nowhere to be found. Unaware of what was happening in another corner of the underworld, listening to And's intent, Heracles frowned slightly. But the underworld is so vast, and the ancient evil's form is so elusive. Even not mentioning their so-called undying nature, I also cannot find its trace. That's how it is, but I don't have a better solution, huh? Just as he responded, And's tone unconsciously paused. Simultaneously, as if sensing something, the great hero lifted his head, looking towards the distant gray wilderness. At the horizon, something seemed to have noticed their presence, something between form and the formless. Vaguely, he seemed to hear the wailing of billions of souls. Seems like I won't have to look for it, does it? With a calm expression, Heracles grasped the bronze staff. Ancient evil, the thousand-faced soul eater. Even if he penetrated into the spirit realm and reached the core of the fourth layer all-spirit realm, the great hero couldn't be certain he'd surely achieve his wish. So before that, if he could defeat this soul-corrupting evil creature ahead of time, that would also be not right. His expression subtly changed. Heracles turned his head to look in another direction. Over there, another aura was slowly rising. Like the thousand-faced soul eater, they all exuded an evil creature's aura. But the feeling they gave was completely different. That is, ancient evil, silent crown. Even without it having arrived yet, Heracles recognized the source of that power. Unlike its counterparts, this ancient evil, tainted with the breath of eternal night, was not so keen on slaughter and battle. It merely stayed quietly in its domain, equally annihilating any life that violated its rules of silence. Few have seen its true form, and even fewer are willing to face such unspeakable horror. For although the silent crown never actively kills, as long as you can adhere to its rules, you can move freely within its domain. However, that is actually a false proposition. The silence of the ancient evil is an eternally relative quiet. It will impose a force upon you, making each moment quieter than the last. As long as you do not oppose this force, then you are in compliance with its rules. At first, those who stray into its domain can easily achieve this. Just speak softly, walk slowly, try not to make any noise. Yet as time goes by, this terror strikes directly at the soul. From spoken words to the beating of the heart. From external noises to the friction between muscles and bones. Ultimately, even thought will be targeted by that ubiquitous force, gradually coming to a halt, eternally maintained at a certain moment. At this point, the ancient evil, unable to extend its power through time and space, will cease its action, acknowledging your adherence to its rules. Of course, correspondingly, a living being will vanish as well. Everything he leaves behind in this world will become a source of power for the ancient evil. His face stern and grave, Heracles did not expect to encounter the adversary. In his memory, this terrifying existence had long been defeated by the king of the underworld, and the power of the entire realm was mobilized to suppress it. Accordingly, it should no longer be active in the world. However, the great hero soon realized the reason. This is not its true form, nor is it a mere avatar. This is a unique incarnation created by harnessing the disturbances it absorbed from the world. And it comes here not for me, but for this harp formed by the power of the land of eternal night. Under normal circumstances, the silent crown would never actively attack external beings unless something attracts it. Taking a deep breath, facing two formidable foes simultaneously, even Heracles felt immense pressure. Yet at this moment his expression changed suddenly. Within his range of perception another aura rose. That is, ancient evil, flesh corridor? Equally shocked, Andy did not expect that the outskirts of the underworld would gather three ancient evils. I understand now. This is because Hera's seal has shown a vulnerability. Long ago, the goddess of wisdom, while still active in the mortal realm, joined hands with the heavenly Empress Hera to dismember and annihilate the flesh corridor that ravaged the earth. I do not know into how many pieces they divided this ancient evil, nor in which places they suppressed them. But clearly, part of it was sealed by Hera in the underworld, a place deemed as barren wasteland by all gods. And now something must have happened to her, causing a breach in this seal. Unaware that Hera had recently used the power of the heavenly Empress to spy on the sacrificial mother tree, Andy could guess part of the reason. But knowing this changes nothing about the situation they face. Heracles, the flesh corridor is after you. Your blood, energy, and body have reached their pinnacle. The thousand-faced soul eater is likely only attracted. In his impression, this terrifying existence had been defeated by the king of the underworld long ago, using the power of the entire realm to suppress it. Logically, it shouldn't be able to be active in the world anymore. But after a moment, the great hero understood the reason. This is not its true form, but neither is it just a simple avatar. This is a unique incarnation it has crafted using the movements it absorbs from the world. Moreover, its purpose here is not me, but rather this harp formed from the power of the land of eternal night. Under normal circumstances, the Silence Crown, would not actively attack external existences unless something attracts it. Taking a deep breath with two formidable enemies appearing simultaneously, even Heracles felt the pressure. But at this moment, his expression suddenly changed. Within his perception range, yet another aura surged. That is, ancient evil, flesh corridor? Equally shocked, Andy did not expect that three ancient evil beings had gathered at the small edge of the underworld. I understand now, this is because there was a breach in Hera's seal. Long ago, when the goddess of wisdom was active in the mortal realm, she and Heavenly Empress Hera jointly tore apart and dismembered the rampaging flesh corridor. I don't know how many pieces they split this ancient evil being into, nor where exactly they were suppressed. But clearly, part of it was sealed by Hera in the underworld, this place that all gods regard as wilderness. And now, something must have gone wrong with her that caused the seal here to fracture. Unaware that Hera recently used the Heavenly Empress powers to spy on the sacrificed Mother Tree, Andy could still somewhat discern the reason. Though recognizing it was one thing, it was irrelevant to the situation they faced. Heracles, the flesh corridor is coming for you. Your blood energy and body have reached their peak. The thousand-faced Soul Eater was likely just drawn here. As long as we find its trail, even if we don't defeat it, I have ways to use puppets to fake a multitude of false souls to lure it away. As for the Silence Crown, you'll need to figure out what to do with that harp of yours. Quickly providing a strategy, Andy was also somewhat anxious at this moment. Although two of the three ancient evil beings were incarnations and the only true form had been crushed by the spirit realm multiple times, it didn't diminish their terror. Possessing an almost indestructible nature, very few in this world could contend with them. But at this moment, Dionysus suddenly spoke. Heracles, I am confident I can handle the last one that arrived. I won't give them another chance like when I saw Ammon fall before me. All right. Deciding quickly, the great hero spoke in a deep voice. Surveying his surroundings, he modified the plan for the puppet in his mind. Andy, take the harp with you and use your puppet to lead away the Silence Crown. Since Dionysus says he can handle the flesh corridor, I trust in his ability. As for me, looking at the end of the gray earth, where Phantom Lives had gradually appeared, he saw countless grotesque, distorted faces roaring, struggling, and screaming madly within a vast and indescribable body. There were elders, women, and children, nobles, commoners, robbers. No matter who they were in life, good or bad, at this moment, they all had only one destiny, to exist as part of an ancient evil being. At least Heracles had the chance to enter the spirit realm and resurrect the dead. But for them, the best outcome would be to transform into pure spiritual energy, to be reclaimed by the spirit realm and shaped into new souls. Buzz. A small tattoo at his chest manifested from illusion to reality. That was the Golden Scales, also known as the Fair Balance. And as its wielder, Heracles could naturally do more than just weigh the scales. With a thought, his originally vast and magnificent blood energy vanished, transforming into a sort of special power. He converted the damage to the tangible into equivalent damage to the intangible, shifting mental harm into physical harm. With An's divine power activating this divine artifact, Heracles immediately earned the qualification to battle the thousand-faced Soul Eater. As the world's mightiest warrior, it was difficult for him to unleash all his power against spiritual entities. But with the Golden Scales, these issues were no longer a problem. The vast land of the underworld, though not as extensive as the mortal realm, it lacked the strong order found in the mortal realm. Gods could exert quite a portion of their power here, with Hades wielding the authority of the underworld, being even more so. After all, whether during epochs in transition or the Typhon Rebellion, this was never the main battlefield. Thus, leaving the newly built Hades Palace alone, Hades quietly strolled along the Styx River. It wasn't the Styx, but the Acheron, the ancient river most closely connected to him, having even been born alongside him. The surging river roared with waves, linking with some of the underworld's foundational power. Although even half the core authority of the River of Sorrow did not occupy such status, often what exists and what doesn't are entirely different concepts. As long as it exists, the Acheron can accomplish many things others can't, being one of the rights as the Netherworld River. At one point, seeing the rising copper pillar and vibrations on the corner of the underworld, Hades's expression remained indifferent. As the god of the underworld, possessing a significant portion of the underworld's authority, he couldn't ignore these things almost parasitizing his body due to his priesthood. The king of the underworld doesn't concern himself with these because there's no need for him to govern them. After all, as Zeus's own brother, Hades knew perfectly well what the other was planning. "Sire, is there anything you would have me do for you?" The river swirled slightly, and a raft emerged from it. Holding a long pole, the left hand beneath the gray robe had become nothing but crystalline white bone. Charon, the ferryman of the Styx River, bowed respectfully, offering the highest reverence to the Lord of the Underworld. A millennium had passed, and he was no longer the weak and pitiful ferryman. A powerful divine power fluctuated within him, with aspects of darkness, death, disease, and decay swirling around Charon. However, unlike the true god of decay Geras and the powers over pestilence and healing held by Apollo and Artemis. In truth, Chaos's god of decay never touched upon death, being more a counterpart to the goddess of youth's powers. The two were even born successively, with powers that mutually restrained each other. Apollo and Artemis weren't truly gods of pestilence either, not even close to the images wielded by Pandora. This result may have to do with Chaos naturally lacking a strong death power, making its related powers far less potent than those in other worlds. Yet clearly, Charon was an exception, with distinct domains intertwined within him, as if they belonged together. Step, he stopped at the riverbank, overlooking the few willing to follow his commands over those of Zeus or the Dark Overlord. Hades's lips formed a stiff smile. He was not accustomed to laughing heartily, as the world seldom offered him opportunities for laughter. No need. Let them fight it out themselves. Heracles, son of Zeus. I noticed this mortal hero from the moment he defeated that lion. If he weren't the son of Zeus, perhaps he could have become another Evans, becoming my reliable aide in the underworld. For the wizards of Silver Moon City, Hades had actually encountered them before. Long ago, due to the existence of the undead, he had noticed the inventions created by humans. Compared to the low intelligence of most undead and the long years needed to gradually awaken their wisdom, the life box created by humans was intriguing. It could directly transform a rational and intelligent life form into an undead being that is close to death, and obtain what can be called undying life, with the cost merely being the dilution of their humanity and emotions as mortals. In the eyes of the Underworld King, this certainly didn't count as a cost, so he once sent subordinates to understand the related issues, even using things longed for by mortals to exchange for their research. In recent years, Hades had even recruited some powerful spellcasters from among the mortals, transforming them after death into this very special life form. Neither living nor dead, neither human nor god, transformed by a wizard, resembling demons, so they called themselves witch demons, which Hades found quite fitting. This new race, unable to reproduce in normal ways, was classified under undead life and was reshaped with some power newly acquired by the Underworld King. Eventually, they became a kind of belonging only to Hades, a wisdom species with a vastly different social structure. Charon. Speaking of wizards, he seemed to recall something. Hades looked at the ferryman, asking about another matter. How is the transaction with that divine witch going, and how long until the ritual that can directly summon abyssal beings is created? That should be soon, right? Not very sure. Charon's response was somewhat vague. As soon as possible then. Although the abyss hides many forbidden entities, I've gradually discovered that it is also a great treasure trove. It's just a matter of whether you know how to uncover it. With a mysterious expression, Hades glanced at the nether moon in the sky. He remembered when he initially wanted to expand the undead numbers. He tried to persuade her with both emotion and reason, but in the end, a confrontation was inevitable. If such things happen just once, it's fine, but if it happens again, then it's a problem of his personal ability. However, for the birth of the undead clan, the existence of magic power and spiritual power was indispensable, so what should he do? Naturally, to rummage through garbage. With a sigh, the underworld king felt a bit awkward. In Tartarus, who knows how much untidy source power is mixed, ultimately evolving into all sorts of strange creations. Since the dominion and laws of the present world have been fully divided, no one can stop me from rummaging through the trash heaps to find some things. Right? Although the gap between chaos and order is very obvious, bit by bit, a way can always be found. Regardless of anything else, at least in death, all beings are equal. Although the chaos world never lacks powerful goddesses, there seems to be a clear gender bias when it comes to authority, whether it be the underworld king, sea emperor, or the divine king. However, there is an exception in the 9 realms. The dominator of Helheim, descendant of an otherworldly god king, dominating the underworld, the goddess of the dead, Hel. She is one of the few female rulers, even if just the ruler of the world of the dead. However, Hades doesn't know much about her, because even after exploring for a long time, he still hasn't found the true legacy of that goddess left in the world. Come with us. Go die, all go to die. Who are you? Who am I? Who will come to save me? No. Let me go. Lose me. Kill you. We'll die together. Boom. Holding a bronze staff, Heracles traversed among the myriad soul shadows. Roars, pleas, curses, wails, countless voices intertwined, resembling a chorus from purgatory. Even with the power of the golden scales transforming his spiritual domain damage into physical damage, the great hero still found his heart unsettled by the symphony of countless voices. Though each swing of his bronze staff extinguished countless souls, it was of no consequence to the 1,000-faced Soul Eater. For even without Heracles' presence, souls were continuously being born and perishing within its own body. As long as it wasn't erased by such special fundamentals like death, or had its soul body drawn out by spirit realm deities, mere destruction would only grind some souls to nourish others. Gradually, the great hero also realized this point. Yet faced with the true body of an ancient evil being, even with the assistance of the divine artifact, it was difficult to truly deal with the opponent. Bam! Huff! Can't go on like this. With a solemn expression, looking around. At this moment, rather than fighting the 1,000-faced Soul Eater, it was as if Heracles had already been swallowed into its belly. Looking all around, the great hero seemed to be within a world belonging to dead souls. Yet at that moment he seemed to notice something. What is that? With twitching expression, Heracles lifted his staff to open up a path. At the end of the path, a bronze giant coffin floated amidst the ocean made up of countless dead souls. Some faint radiance seeped through the giant coffin, keeping nearby souls at bay. This was the radiance of divinity. But almost visibly, this light was gradually dimming, being corroded and assimilated by the power of the ancient evil being, turning into a part of its strength. This aura, the power of a god, and it belongs to the domain of life. Striding forward, he opened the bronze coffin, where a young girl in a green dress lay quietly inside. It seemed like she was in a peaceful slumber, yet also appeared to be suffering. Judging from her pale complexion, her condition was undoubtedly not good. This appearance is the youth goddess Hebe. How did she end up here? And why did she fall into the body of the ancient evil being? Unable to understand the cause and effect of the situation, he closed the coffin again, leaving only a small gap. Carrying the bronze coffin on his back, Heracles had found a way to deal with the evil being. Although his power could not completely erase the soul body of the 1,000-faced Soul Eater, he would go seek something that could erase its power. That something naturally couldn't be Hebe, but she could serve as bait to lure the ancient evil being. Let's change the battlefield to the River of Oblivion. Leaping into the air, he enlarged the bronze staff in his hand 1,000-fold, then smashed it down. Following the channel he had opened, Heracles forged ahead. For the wizards of Silver Moon City, Hades was actually not their first encounter. Long ago, due to the presence of the undead, he had taken note of the inventions of those humans. Compared to the low intelligence of most undead, and the wisdom that might gradually awaken over a long time, the life boxes created by humans were intriguing. They could directly transform an intelligent living being into an undead existence close to death, gaining what could be called an undying life at the mere cost of suppressing their human nature and emotions. In the eyes of Hades, this certainly wasn't a cost, so he once sent his subordinates to understand such matters, even exchanging with humans using things they dreamed of for corresponding research. In recent years, Hades had also recruited some powerful spellcasters among mortals, transforming them into this very special life form after death. Neither alive nor dead, neither human nor god, transformed by wizards, resembling demons, hence they called themselves liches, which Hades found quite fitting. This new race, unable to reproduce normally, was classified under undead life and was reshaped using some new power Hades acquired. Eventually, they became dependents belonging solely to Hades, a wise species with a unique social structure. Charon. Speaking of wizards, it seemed like he remembered something. Hades looked at the ferryman and inquired about another matter. How is the transaction between you and that divine witch progressing, and how soon can that ritual capable of directly summoning abyssal life be created? It should be soon, right? Uncertain, Charon's response was somewhat vague. As soon as possible. Although many forbidden entities are hidden in the abyss, I gradually discovered that it is also a great treasure trove, if only you know how to find it. With a mysterious expression, Hades glanced at the nether moon in the sky. He recalled the time when he wanted to expand the number of undead and had tried reasoning with her, yet an encounter was still inevitable. Such an incident happening once was one thing, but if it occurred again, it would be a testament to his personal inadequacy. Yet for the birth of the undead clan, the presence of magic power and spiritual power was indispensable, so what was he to do? Naturally, go rummaging through trash. Sighing, the god of the underworld felt slightly embarrassed. In Tartarus, who knows how many myriad source powers are mixed together, eventually evolving into all sorts of strange creations. Since the authority and laws of this world have been divided up, nobody could stop me from scavenging through piles of refuse for some things. Though the gap between chaos and order is quite distinct, bit by bit, a way can always be found. Ignoring everything else, at least in the face of death, all living beings are equal. In the chaos world, although powerful goddesses were never lacking, there seemed to be a notable gender bias when it came to power. Whether it was the underworld king, sea emperor, or divine king, it was the same. However, in contrast, the 9 realms had an exception. Helheim's ruler, the offspring of the otherworldly god king, ruler of the underworld, the goddess of the dead Hel. She was one of the rare female sovereigns, even if only in the world of the dead. Yet Hades knew little about her, for though he had explored for a long time, he never found the true legacy left by the goddess in the world. Come join us. Aldi. Who are you? Who am I? Someone save me. No. Let me go. Without me, I'll kill you. We'll die together. Boom! Grasping the bronze staff, Heracles traversed amidst the overwhelming soul shadows. The roars, the pleas, the curses, the howls, countless voices interwove like a symphony from purgatory. Even with the power of the golden scales, the great hero had already transformed the spiritual domain damage he suffered into physical harm. But without the blessing of extraordinary power, the symphony of billions of voices still made one's heart restless. Though every swing of the bronze staff extinguished countless souls, it was meaningless to the thousand-faced soul eater. For even without Heracles' presence, the souls within its body kept being born and dying. Unless wiped out by a special authority like death, or the soul body shattered and the spiritual power drawn away by a deity of the spirit realm, mere destruction only ground part of the souls to feed the others. Gradually, the great hero realized this. But faced with the true form of an ancient evil being, though he could contend with it with the help of a divine artifact, it was still hard to truly harm it. Bam! Phew! I can't keep going like this. With a heavy expression, he surveyed his surroundings. At this moment, rather than saying Heracles was fighting the thousand-faced soul eater, it was more like he had been swallowed into its belly. Looking around, the great hero seemed to be in a world belonging to dead souls. However, at that moment, he seemed to notice something. What is that? With a flicker of expression, Heracles raised his staff to carve out a passage. At the end of the path, a bronze giant coffin floated amidst an ocean formed by countless dead souls. Faint light emanated through the giant coffin, deterring nearby souls from approaching. It was divine brilliance. But almost visibly, this light was gradually dimming, being corroded and assimilated by the power of the ancient evil being, turning into a part of its strength. This aura, the power of a god, and it belongs to the domain of life. Striding forward, he opened the bronze coffin, where a young girl in a green dress lay quietly inside. It seemed like she was in a peaceful slumber, yet also appeared to be suffering. Judging from her pale complexion, her condition was undoubtedly not good. This appearance is the youth goddess Hebe. How did she end up here, and why did she fall into the body of the ancient evil being? Unable to understand the cause and effect of the situation, he closed the coffin again, leaving only a small gap. Carrying the bronze coffin on his back, Heracles had found a way to deal with the evil being. Although his power could not completely erase the soul body of the thousand-faced soul eater, he had to find something that could erase her power. Ha! A soft gasp. In an unknown place, it was the white dragon, wandering between reality and dream, who first discovered Heracles. Wandering at the edge of the all-spirit realm, Isarania wasn't here for the first time. Throughout past years, she often came to the banks of the River of Oblivion, watching the struggles and the descent of countless souls. The memories of those with a weak will and unremarkable impressions had long settled at the riverbed amidst the flowing waters. Those who managed to maintain their sanity all the way to the all-spirit realm often had a glorious life. Isarania didn't care how they lived before, but she would bestow them with a beautiful dream at the end of their life, ultimately preserving it deep within the dream spirit realm, becoming one of the bricks supporting its expansion. In this case, when Heracles appeared here, he almost immediately attracted the white dragon's attention. After merely a glance up and down, Isarania's crystalline eyes slightly shifted down, fixing on the great hero's wrist. There, a ritual mark shone brightly. With just one look, the white dragon recognized its origins. It was a reflection of history, a manifestation of some miracle. It was the false immortality, capable of stripping death from an existence, allowing it to remain eternally undying for a period of time. Of course, regarding its power, Isarania didn't care. Just that since this power appeared on Heracles, it seemed she had no need to stop him. Silently watching him, the white dragon's tail slapped the surface of the Styx River. A bit bored, yet not knowing what to do. Since the last toy ran away, Isarania hadn't encountered anything interesting for a long time. Even the great battle outside Mount Olympus didn't provide her the opportunity to intervene. Continuing forward, Heracles was still drifting. And after the white dragon, the second to discover him was Eros. Small wings fluttered behind, and the girl bearing the lead arrow saw the commotion at the riverbed. An intruder. Logically, she should expel or eliminate him. Yet Eros didn't plan to do so, because though her task was to obstruct those who might disrupt the stability of Samsara. Now, even Samsara wasn't here. So theoretically I can let him in. Casually finding an excuse, Eros chose to neglect her duty. Of course, she was mainly curious about what this human intended to do. On Heracles, she sensed the aura of the golden apple and various demonic scents. Was this kind of human planning to cause chaos in the spirit realm? Tisk. Even Isarania didn't mind him. Why should I care? The spiritual giant dragon might have let him in, so there should be no problem. With a nonchalant smile, but after pondering for a moment, Eros took out Volos' golden arrow from her waist. She decided that both the lead arrow and the golden arrow needed at least one shot at this guy today. As for how exactly to shoot, I'll see if he can make me laugh. Cheering, Eros lightly fanned her wings, disappearing from the edge of the all-spirit realm. Utilizing her authority as a deity of the spirit realm, she mobilized part of the realm's power, secretly following him. But at the same time, along the trajectory of the great hero's movement, Eros also peered into his origins. 1, 2, 3. So many evil creatures and gods. Covering her mouth in surprise, Eros patted her ordinary chest, as if she was frightened. Yet seeing her twirling, restless eyes, it was clear she didn't take this matter to heart at all. Continuing his movement at the riverbed, Heracles silently passed 2 checkpoints. At a certain moment, as the magic potion's effect gradually faded, his dormant will slowly awakened. Gently opening his eyes, the great hero looked out from the riverbed. The clear river water reflected the moonlight, for spirit moons illuminating the skies above the all-spirit realm. Flanking the riverbanks, a variety of architectural styles lined up in succession. The rich spirituality permeated his body, making him feel extremely comfortable. Is this, have I already arrived? Silently halting his drifting with the current, Heracles grasped the Caucasus divine eagle's eye pupil. This demon relic, although it hadn't provided substantial power assistance in the great hero's past adventures, had indeed played a considerable role. Just like now, with his eye power alone, he wouldn't have been able to see the external world from the bottom of the Styx River. But with the help of the Caucasus divine eagle's pupil, he saw the destination of his journey. In the boundless void, 3 vast auras closely tied to the interface extended from heaven to earth. Yet vaguely, Heracles could feel a certain rigidity. These weren't the main bodies, but temporarily differentiated avatars, mechanically executing godhood. Shifting his gaze, the great hero gazed at the center of the interface. In the records of the Purgatory Book, that was the axis of the spirit realm, harboring the world's most powerful divine artifact, symbolizing the eternal recurrence and endless flow of all things, the well of reincarnation, which was also his final purpose here. Yet at a glance, what shocked Heracles was that there wasn't the legendary ocean-like vast bicolor well surface, no towering mountain-like well walls. There was only a large pit, as if something once existed there, but now there was nothing left. Only in front of it, a phantom mirror image was suspended there. The projection of the Spleer mirror exists to assist the well of reincarnation in the rebirth of countless souls. What is happening? Confusion arose, but there was no panic within the heart. Because looking at the mirror image hanging high in the air, Heracles knew that he had not come in vain. In fact, his journey to the spirit realm was not for the well of reincarnation itself, but to use reincarnation and the divine mirror that holds the space authority to reflect the world and find the soul of his mother, whom he accidentally killed. Stepping quietly out of the Styx River, the power of the magic potion had not completely dissipated. Concealing his own aura, Heracles took a deep breath. He carefully observed his surroundings, weaving through the ranks of souls. Looking up at the sky, the incarnations of the 3 goddesses were shrouded in divine light. The great hero knew well that if their true selves were left here, he would probably have a hard time escaping detection. But it was as if everything was paving the way for him. After half a day of difficult exploration, Heracles finally stood before the abyss-like bottomless pit. Oh! A soft exclamation, and in a place unknown, the first to discover Heracles was none other than the white dragon that roamed between reality and dreams. Lingering on the edge of the all-spirit realm, Isarania was no stranger to this place. In the past years, she often came to the banks of the River of Oblivion, watching the struggles and descents of the countless souls. Those with weak will, those memories that are not deeply imprinted, have long since settled at the bottom of the river with the current. Those who could maintain their sanity all the way to the all-spirit realm often had a brilliant life. Isarania did not care how they lived, but she would bestow them with a beautiful dream at the end of their lives, preserving it deep in the dream spirit realm, becoming one of the bricks supporting its expansion. In this situation, when Heracles appeared here, he almost immediately caught the attention of the white dragon. But after a brief look, Isera's crystal-like eyes slightly shifted downward, fixing on the wrist of the great hero. There, a trace left by a ritual shone brightly. Just one glance, and the white dragon identified its origin. It was a reflection of history, the materialization of a kind of miracle. It represented the false undying, capable of depriving a being of death, granting it immortality for a period of time. Of course, Iserania didn't care for the corresponding power. But since this power appeared on Heracles, she seemed to have no reason to stop him. Silently watching him, the white dragon's tail slapped the surface of the Styx River. Feeling a bit bored, yet not knowing what to do. Since the last toy ran away, Iserania hadn't encountered anything interesting in a long time. Even the great battle outside Mount Olympus did not give her a chance to intervene. Continuing forward, Heracles was still drifting. After the white dragon, the second to notice him was Eros. Wings small and delicate flickered behind her. The girl carrying the lead arrow saw the commotion at the bottom of the river. An intruder, theoretically, she should have driven him away or exterminated him. But Eros decided not to do so, because even though her task was to block those who could disturb the stability of reincarnation, currently reincarnation was not even here. So technically I can let him in. Using a random excuse, Eros chose to neglect her duty. Of course, she was mainly curious about what this human was planning to do. On Heracles, she sensed the aura of the golden apple and all sorts of demonic scents. Is this human planning to cause a ruckus in the spirit realm? Tisk, if Iserania didn't bother with him, why should I care? If the spiritual giant dragon let him in, then there must not be any problem. Laughing indifferently, but after a moment of contemplation, Eros drew out the golden arrow of Volos from her waist. She decided that the lead arrow and golden arrow should at least have a shot at this guy today. As for how it would be shot specifically, let's see if he can make me laugh. With a cheer, Eros flapped her wings lightly, concealing her presence from the edge of the all-spirit realm. Leveraging her authority as a deity of the spirit realm, she mobilized part of the interface's power, secretly following behind Heracles. However, at the same time, along the path of the great hero's movement, Eros also spied on his origins. 1, 2, 3. So many evil creatures and deities. She gasped and covered her mouth, patting her unremarkable chest as if she was startled. But looking at her rolling big eyes, it was clear she didn't really take this matter to heart. Continuing to move along the riverbed, Heracles silently passed through 2 checkpoints. At a certain moment, as the effect of the magic potion gradually faded, his dormant consciousness slowly revived. Opening his eyes slowly, the great hero looked out from the riverbed. The transparent river water reflected the moonlight, the 4 spirit moons illuminating the sky above the all-spirit realm. Along the banks of the river, buildings of varied styles stood in rows. The rich spirituality aura permeated his body, making him feel extremely comfortable. Is it here already? Quietly halting his drift, Heracles grasped the Caucasus divine eagle's pupil. This relic of the demon, though it hadn't provided substantial power in the great hero's past adventures, had indeed played a significant role. Just like now, with his own eye power, he wouldn't be able to see the various things outside the bottom of the Styx River. But with the aid of the Caucasus divine eagle's pupil, he glimpsed the journey's end. In the unseen vastness, 3 grand auras connected tightly to the interface, reaching from earth to heaven. Yet dimly, Heracles could sense a certain stiffness. That was not the original body, but a temporary split-off mechanically executing godhood. Moving his gaze back, the great hero looked toward the center of the interface. According to the records of the Purgatory Book, there in the heart of the spirit realm stood the most powerful divine artifact in the world, a symbol of the eternal cycle of all things, the well of reincarnation, and also the ultimate goal of his journey. However, upon a single glance, what shocked Heracles was that there was no 2-colored well surface as vast as the ocean, nor well walls towering like mountain ridges. There was only a great pit, as if something once existed there, but now there was nothing. Only in front of it, a phantom-like mirror image was suspended there. The projection of the Spleer mirror exists to assist the well of reincarnation in the rebirth of countless souls. What is happening? Confusion arose, but there was no panic within the heart. Because looking at the mirror image hanging high in the air, Heracles knew that he had not come in vain. In fact, his journey to the spirit realm was not for the well of reincarnation itself, but to use reincarnation and the divine mirror that holds the space authority to reflect the world and find the soul of his mother, whom he accidentally killed. Stepping quietly out of the Styx River, the power of the magic potion had not completely dissipated. Concealing his own aura, Heracles took a deep breath. He carefully observed his surroundings, weaving through the ranks of souls. Looking up at the sky, the incarnations of the three goddesses were shrouded in divine light. The great hero knew well that if their true selves were left here, he would probably have a hard time escaping detection. But it was as if everything was paving the way for him. After half a day of difficult exploration, Heracles finally stood before that bottomless abyss-like gigantic pit. The reflection of Spleer mirror shimmered with twilight, and the breath of reincarnation almost merged with it. Queek. Within the golden palace, an avatar of Zeus sits upon the throne. The door opens once more, and following the envoy of the sea god, the envoy of Hades arrives before the divine king. From a high vantage point, looking down at this pale-skinned, bloodless being resembling a corpse, Zeus furrows his brow. What is this thing, some sort of thinking dead being? Unexpectedly, apart from the skeletal beings of the underworld, Hades' connection with the dead is growing deeper. Coughing lightly, the divine king sits upright and formal. In deference to Hades, he grudgingly allows this fellow to appear before him, but only just. Messenger from the underworld, state your purpose. Speaking indifferently, Zeus releases a slight pressure, hoping this figure won't bring him any bad news. I heard you came to file a complaint, but matters of the underworld are judged by Hades. Why come to me? Honorable divine king. Naturally, because the person I need to accuse involves the creatures of the surface. Without changing expression, a person who has died once does not fear death. The envoy calmly explains, in a voice as flat as a machine. As you know, in ancient times, two primordial gods were born at the borders of the underworld. During the chaos of Typhon, the mother of flesh, the source of the myriad evil creatures, scattered her power across the world, leading to the birth of the ancient evil. Flesh corridor on the earth, and the presence of beings like Twisted Shadow, Silence Crown, and Thousand-Faced Soul Eater wreaking havoc in the underworld. Fortunately, the goddess of wisdom and the heavenly empress divided and suppressed one. His Majesty Hades blockaded and sealed another, and a deity from the spirit realm expelled one, allowing the underworld to remain stable. However, not long ago, a demigod from the mortal realm arrived in the underworld. After knocking out the gatekeeper Cerberus, he somehow incited a rebellion among a group of evil creatures. The ancient evil suppressed by Hades showed signs of unrest. The evil spirit sealed by the heavenly empress also broke free, and the thousand-faced soul eater invaded the underworld once again, making it difficult for the gods to resist. After one battle, the demigod from the mortal realm disappeared, but most of the creatures in the underworld were destroyed. The earth is torn, the temple collapses, and the nether moon shakes, and the law is unstable. Even His Majesty Hades was greatly alarmed, and fears he cannot venture out in the short term. If not for this, His Majesty Hades would not have sent me here to complain to you, great God King Zeus, as the supreme ruler of the heavens, earth, and sea. Please make a just judgment on this matter. The underworld must make this person pay the price to compensate for the damage suffered by the underworld. On the throne, silent and speechless, with every sentence heard, the corner of Zeus' eye twitches slightly. What words? What do you mean by difficult for the gods to resist? Aren't the deities of the underworld all supposed to follow my commands, as per the Lord of Darkness? What do you, a mere figurehead, have to resist? Could it be Sharon, that ferryman who finds it difficult to resist? And the reemergence of the ancient evil. I don't know how the others got out, but I know a thing or two about the sealing of the flesh corridor. If not for Hera's random peeking, leading to an issue with the seal imposed by the Heavenly Empress, the other side wouldn't have been able to escape. As for the destruction of the Netherworld Palace, that's absolute nonsense. Cough, cough, messenger from the underworld. Are you sure that the Hades Palace was destroyed by that demigod? Speaking in a deep voice, Zeus feels he is being deceived. The sea god is one thing. Their palace is in the ocean. With the laws of the sea becoming indeed chaotic, damage was to be expected. But how could the underworld encounter a similar event? Your actions are all lies. Yes. Affirming with a nod, the envoy produces a fragment. It was crushed like this. Even the hardest divine metal was utterly unable to withstand the sheer force of that human. And strangely, it is also imbued with the power of thunder. His Majesty Hades asked me to inquire whether you have any insight into this matter? Looking at the conspicuous fragment, Zeus feels very familiar with it. Indeed, he had seen it before. It was the palace fragment of the backstab incident in the underworld last time, which had been destroyed by his own power, not by Heracles. This makes sense. The Divine King remembers clearly that after that incident, Hades ran out to Silver Moon City, pondering the mystery lock of the goddess of the magic net for days and nights, learning something unknown. Upon his return, he integrates the newly built structure as a whole. Utilizing the leniency of the underworld law, with divine power and interface laws, he fortifies his palace, making it collapse-proof. As Zeus knows, to prevent similar catastrophes caused by great divine power clashes. The new Hades Palace can even fly, making it impossible for Heracles to destroy it. Yet, impossible or not, the fact remains that Hades Palace was once destroyed by his power. With a stiff nod, Zeus signals that he understands. It's surprising that Hades, with his great merits, was intimidated by a demigod from the mortal realm. Since he wishes to calm himself in the underworld, there's no rush for him to come to Olympus to see me. As for the losses in the underworld, I will compensate. Just as he was about to make a promise, the Divine King saw the servant beside him step forward. Your Majesty, we don't have enough divine metal to repair the palace of the underworld. Whispering, the servant hurriedly explained the seriousness of the issue. The remaining ones are needed for repairing the temples of Olympus. If you promise them away, the palace of Mount of the Gods will have to make do with mortal materials for the time being. Feeling speechless, Zeus suddenly remembered that, due to his poor relationship with Gaia, he wasn't in charge of the minerals on the surface. Hades had always obeyed orders but not commands, so the minerals deep underground were not his either. Even the minerals traditionally used to repair the temples mostly came from Hades, out of consideration for his elder sister Hestia. Zeus had simply never cared about such trivial matters in the past, so he hadn't paid attention. Creak. In the Golden Palace, Zeus's avatar sat upon the throne. The doors opened once more. Following the sea god's envoy, the envoy of the underworld also arrived before the Divine King. Looking down from above at the pale, bloodless presence resembling a corpse, Zeus frowned. What was this? Some kind of thinking dead man? Unexpectedly, besides the skeletal figures of the underworld, Hades and the dead are growing ever closer. Clearing his throat, the Divine King sat upright. On account of Hades, he reluctantly allowed this person to appear before him, but that was all. Envoy from the underworld, state your purpose. Zeus spoke lightly, releasing a bit of pressure, hoping this person wouldn't bring bad news. I heard you're here to complain, but matters of the underworld are judged by Hades, so why bring them to me? Honorable Divine King, it's because the person I wish to accuse involves the beings of the surface. Without changing expression, a person who has died once naturally fears not death. Speaking calmly, the envoy explained smoothly, like a machine. As you know, in ancient times, Two primordial gods were born on the sides of the underworld. During the Typhon chaos, the source of billions of evil creatures, the Mother of Flesh spread her power across the realm, leading to the emergence of ancient evil, Flesh Corridor on earth and stirring, Twisted Shadow, Silence Crown, Thousand-Faced Soul Eater in the underworld. Fortunately, the goddess of wisdom and the heavenly empress divided and suppressed one. Hades blocked and sealed another, and the deity of the spirit realm drove one away, bringing peace to the underworld. Yet, not long ago, a mortal demigod arrived in the underworld. After knocking out Cerberus guarding the gate, he somehow incited a riot among the evil creatures. The ancient evil suppressed by Hades showed signs of instability. The evil spirits sealed by the heavenly empress escaped, and Thousand-Faced Soul Eater invaded the underworld once more, making all gods struggle to resist. In the midst of battle, the mortal demigod vanished, yet much of the underworld's beings were destroyed. The earth torn apart, temples collapsed, the nether moon shook, the law destabilized. Even Hades was greatly alarmed. He might not be able to travel in the short term. Were it not for this, Lord Hades wouldn't have sent me to complain to you. Great God King Zeus, the supreme monarch ruling the heavens, earth, and seas, I request you make a just judgment on this matter. The underworld must make this person pay to recover from its losses. Silent and speechless on the throne, with each sentence heard, Zeus's eye twitched a little. What nonsense was this? How could all gods struggle to resist? The deities of the underworld, aren't they following the orders of the Lord of Darkness now? What's there for you to resist with a lone soul, perhaps Charon, who only knows how to ferry souls, is struggling to resist? Moreover, the return of the ancient evil. I don't know how the others happened, but I know a bit about the seal on Flesh Corridor. If it weren't for Hera's random observations causing issues with the seal under the Heavenly Empress's authority, the opponent wouldn't have escaped. As for the destruction of the Underworld Palace, that's even more absurd. Ahem, envoy of the Underworld, are you sure that all the palaces of Underworld have indeed been destroyed by that demigod? Speaking deeply, Zeus felt he was deceived. The sea god is understandable. Their palaces are in the ocean. The chaotic state of the law of the ocean truly justifies the damages. But how could such a thing happen in the underworld? Your behavior is complete lies. Yes. The envoy nodded affirmatively and produced a fragment. It was crushed like this. Even the hardest divine metal couldn't resist the immense power of that human. Strangely, thunderous power also surrounds it. Lord Hades asked me to inquire if you had any insights on this matter? Face colored with intrigue, seeing the glaring fragment, Zeus felt a keen sense of familiarity. Yes, indeed, he had seen it before. This was a fragment from the palace where he backstabbed in the underworld last time, a building he personally destroyed, not something done by Heracles. That makes sense, Zeus remembers clearly, after which Hades went outside Silver Moon City, pondering over the mystery lock of the goddess of the magic net for 10 days and nights, realizing something. Upon returning, he integrated the new palace into one. He also relied on the flexible underworld law, leveraging divine power and the law of the interface to strengthen its palace again, ensuring it would never collapse. As Zeus knows, to prevent similar divine power crises from happening again, this newly constructed Hades palace can even fly, so by all means it couldn't have been destroyed by Heracles. However, impossible as it might be, it's a fact that Hades' palace was destroyed by his power once before. Therefore, with a stiff nod, Zeus indicated his understanding. Hades has worked hard and was frightened by a mortal demigod. That's indeed surprising to me. Since he wants to ease his mind in the underworld, there's no hurry for him to see me at Olympus. As for the losses in the underworld, I will compensate. Just as he was about to make a promise, the divine king saw the servant beside him step forward. Your Majesty, we don't have enough divine metal to repair the palace of the underworld. Whispering, the servant hurriedly explained the seriousness of the issue. The remaining ones are needed for repairing the temples of Olympus. If you promise them away, the palace of Mount of the Gods will have to make do with mortal materials for the time being. Feeling speechless, Zeus suddenly remembered that, due to his poor relationship with Gaia, he wasn't in charge of the minerals on the surface. Hades had always obeyed orders but not commands, so the minerals deep underground were not his either. Even the minerals traditionally used to repair the temples mostly came from Hades, out of consideration for his elder sister Hestia. Zeus had simply never cared about such trivial matters in the past, so he hadn't paid attention. Ahem, what I mean is, I will compensate him in other ways. Clearing his throat twice, Zeus cursed silently. The dignified divine king can't even build the palace of deities. Is this reasonable? This is unreasonable. As for that demigod, I will deal with it. Anything else? No, your majesty. Bowingly, the underworld envoy immediately withdrew. Seeing this, Zeus breathed a sigh of relief. Finally left. Not everything in this world can be solved with brute force. At least the matter of damaging Hades's palace can't be handled so crudely. Seeing matters finally settled, the divine king prepared to rest for a while. Yet the next moment, another summon arrived, albeit delayed. Your Majesty, someone else is requesting an audience. Heracles, my child, you have finally arrived. Inside the Golden Palace, casually throwing the undying sea nymph aside. With a long sigh, the divine king's tone was leisurely and filled with emotion. In front of him, footsteps could be heard from within the space passage. The previous displeasure was cast aside. Although Heracles indeed caused him a lot of trouble, Zeus deemed it all worthwhile. Because in him, he saw a miracle far beyond his previous imagination, a potential mightier than he had initially anticipated. The symbol of upholding the heavens, the power of demons, surpassing the physique of deities, a resilient will. You have finally uncovered the mysteries of your bloodline and solved the final riddle I left for you. I know there may be many doubts in your heart, but do not worry, I will respond to them one by one. And at the end of it all, I will bestow upon you a glory beyond any mortal's imagination. The low voice echoed in the Golden Palace, causing even the god of west wind outside the palace to fall silent. Zeus' regard for this mortal offspring was something he had closely observed. Perhaps initially just a pawn, but now, he had become a crucial pawn. Yes, indeed. Zephyrus knew Zeus well. In the divine king's eyes, apart from himself, nothing could not be abandoned. His close wife, still unborn children, mortal lovers, and the kingdom, life, system. So Heracles was no exception. He was just more significant compared to others. Thud, thud. The footsteps stopped. Entering the all-spirit realm from the outside took a long time, but coming to the present world from the all-spirit realm was quick. The crimson light and shadow seemed to still reflect in the depths of his eyes, and the copper staff of immeasurable weight was held in his hand. For the first time in his life, the great hero entered this palace belonging solely to the deities. And on the high throne, the divine king's mood grew increasingly joyful. Heracles, a very good. Compared to such strength and talent, the trouble he caused before was merely trivial. Although for the divine king himself, this martial strength was negligible. But for mortals, this power was unreachable. For Zeus, this human who had reached this point with a mortal body was the perfect embodiment of his untold thoughts, and the cornerstone for gaining stronger power in the future. Enthroning deities. With eyes ablaze, Zeus thought of those faith-driven evil gods among mortals. Through faith, he had already grasped the ability to elevate weak deities to strength. And through Heracles, he would create a grand deception against heaven, making the world believe that he, God King Zeus, truly had the power to elevate a mortal to true God. As the master of sovereignty, Zeus knew well that the essence of power was the domination of life, and the essence of dominating life was the qualification for distributing benefits. These benefits could be constituted by violence, for he held the right to decide whether they could continue living. They could also be constituted by temptation, the things that all living beings longed for: strength, longevity, immortality, and identity as revered as deities, which were also what he pursued. Though the divine king could not achieve this now, it was just the beginning. Once he fully unified everything in the present world, who would forbid him from making the grand feat of enthroning deities by using Asgard as the core and underpinned by the Divine King's power? With the first seeming reality of falsehood, he might just be able to achieve the seeming impossibility of reality. Heracles, my most exceptional descendant. With a solemn and majestic appearance, Zeus looked at Heracles without holding back his generosity. Come forth, my child. Ask me questions, and I will answer them one by one. From the moment you were born, I foresaw your extraordinariness, that one day you would come to the realm of gods by your own strength, step by step to stand before me. This is the heavenly destiny of the son of the God King, and the gift I bestow upon you. Answer my question? His voice was calm, although he had already seen the rushing tide of blood in the past visions. Yet at this moment, Heracles still held onto a sliver of hope. Maybe it was false, perhaps Zeus had prepared in advance. After all, from a perspective of interest, he had no need to kill a mortal, right? Then I want to know, Your Majesty the Divine King, since the gods promised mortals eternal life after death, where is my mother now? My arrows pierced her chest. This is the greatest mistake of my life, and now I have come to rectify it. Alcmena? Upon hearing this, Zeus smiled, as he had anticipated this question. Indeed, because of the grievous crime of patricide, Heracles willingly embarked on his trials, despite the error not stemming from his true intention. And he had long prepared for this, capturing the soul of that mortal princess, also a descendant of his bloodline, into the divine kingdom. He had thought that one day in the future, he would resurrect her, transform her into a heroic spirit or even a constellation, thereby ending Heracles' mortal sins. Rest assured, she is fine. She is in Aska. About to speak and reveal the whereabouts of the other party. Suddenly, the voice of the Divine King paused abruptly. Alcmena, Divine Kingdom? Asgard. Revitalized, Heracles asked loudly. And now? Silent for a moment, Zeus suddenly remembered. The places where he stored mortal souls were basically two, either the Asgardian divine domain or the former Hall of Valor. And now, both places have encountered problems. This wasn't because he was unprepared in advance. On the contrary, for those souls he valued highly, the Divine King hadn't intended to sacrifice them recklessly. But what he didn't expect was, even though his true form was present in the mortal realm, he couldn't return to the divine court immediately when Olympus was attacked. It was as if all the accidents converged on him at that moment, forcing Zeus to linger in the void. By the time he returned to the Mount of the Gods, it was already too late to do anything. To prevent those souls from entering the well of reincarnation and serving as proof of his inability to maintain the divine contract. The Divine King had to personally act and use them as sacrifices, erasing their last traces in the world. Asgard has encountered an accident now. Let's discuss this matter later. You will get her whereabouts. Zeus spoke, unwilling to dwell further. But in front of him, Heracles did not accept this response. Stepping forward, looking at his father on the throne, the great hero was silent for a long time. The avoidance seemed to prove something. At a certain moment, he finally asked, "Okay, I will change the question. In the name of the Divine King, in the name of the Oathkeeper, as the ruler of heavens and seas, tell me, when I shot that arrow back then, where were you?" The Divine King was silent, and after a long time, he spoke lightly. "So, are you questioning me?" On the throne of the Golden Palace, the original smile gradually faded, leaving only majesty. At the peak of the highest mountain of the time, the Divine King looked at the most outstanding of his mortal offspring, the invisible pressure spreading within the hall. He could try to show the tenderness of a father, or not care about the troubles the other party caused. But that premise was that the other party understood his identity. He was the son of the God King, burdened with a great mission upon coming into this world. For greater interest, such a small problem, why bother? Heracles, you should know. As my offspring, I gave you the bloodline of the deity, bestowed upon you the supreme gift, and granted you glory beyond all mortals. And all of this, only because I have such deep expectations for you. So, my child, I can overlook your minor offense because you are too young to understand the hardships of the world. But that is no reason for you to question me, question your father. You should thank me, respect me, far more than anyone else in the world, not that woman who polluted your noble bloodline. Those who achieve great things don't bother with trifles. Stand down, stay in Olympus, and continue down the path I have laid out for you. You will ultimately become an undying divinity, becoming the most vital cornerstone of my rule over all spirits. The voice was calm and distant. Zeus was not as angry as expected at Heracles' questioning. Whether humans or deities, most of them are easily swayed by emotions, but he wasn't like that. Even though it's hard to forget Metis's silhouette, the divine king never regretted his actions. If not for his decision back then, perhaps he would have long fallen under the evil god-king of the alien realm scheme. How would he be where he is today? Bowing slightly, Zeus extended a hand. Alcmena's affair was just an accident. I never intended for her to die, even if for your sake. But since the accident has happened, let it pass. Come to me. I will give you the glory that all creatures in the world can only long for but never reach. From now on, leave the mortal world and stand alongside the gods. In comparison, what's the life or death of a mortal worth? Whoosh! Retreating a step, the heavy bronze staff swayed in the air, bringing a sound of wind. Although he had mentally prepared for various outcomes, hearing such words firsthand from his father, Heracles still struggled to suppress his emotions. This is the divine king, the source of his bloodline. As your offspring, it only makes me feel sorrow. The shadow of the staff swayed. The great hero took a deep breath. However, standing in front of him, Zeus only furrowed his brows slightly, without more reaction. Unable to understand, but that was unsurprising, as most of the world was ignorant and trapped by emotions. But it doesn't matter. When Heracles raised his questioning, he was already prepared. Falling from the sky, crashing into the mortal realm. The wind howls past the ears, breaking through layers of the sea of clouds. Pressed against the chest by his own weapon, as if bearing the weight of a towering mountain. Thoughts gather at the wrist for a moment, then shift away. Since gaining consciousness, Heracles had never felt so weak. Because chains, hovering between form and formless, were wrapping around him, binding the strength capable of moving mountains and overturning peaks. This is the seal of the divine king, which once sealed the Titans in the First Era, sparking Mother Earth's rebellion against the Heavenly Father. It also sealed the sun in the Second Era, foreshadowing Cronus's grasp over the power of the stars. And now it was imposed upon a human, naturally achieving better effects. If the former ones, though imprisoned, at least still retained their inherent mighty power against the divine king, then Heracles was different. Though his strength was great, it could not surpass the Hecatonchires whom all gods dreaded. In front of the ancient sun god, he could not stand shoulder to shoulder with the sun. Thus, the rules easily locked him down, making him as fragile as any ordinary mortal. So, in the depths of his consciousness, the great hero touched that silver halo. It was the mark left by the reflection of the divine artifact, Spleer Mirror, that sent him to Mount Olympus. Because of its existence, Heracles indulged his inner desires, stepping onto the Mount of the Gods unprepared. As long as he had it, he could return to the road he came from. Moreover, aside from this, he had an ace he never used, which was the illusion of immortality. Andy had told him only the primordial gods themselves, or powers equivalent to them, could violently break through this right. And in the images of that history, the true form of the divine king was already trapped in Asgard, after he committed his vile sacrifice. Breaking the oath between gods and mortals, forsaking the morals and honor of a god, he ultimately could not prevail. Upon witnessing this scene, Heracles felt only shame, that his bloodline could come from such a god, and the other was the king of all gods. Bang! Silver light twisted. The great hero vanished along the path he came, plunging down into the all-spirit realm. But perhaps it was preset by the rules, for even the power of the Splir mirror did not return him to the origin, but instead appeared at the edge of the all-spirit realm. The cycle of samsara, outsiders must not intrude. This was the established rule. Collapsing onto the slate paved with blue stone, Heracles did not move. He gazed up at the 4 spirit moons in the sky, quietly digesting the events earlier. "Ha, you're back!" A startled exclamation. Eros flapped his wings, manifesting his figure. Seeing the great hero lying on the ground, she poked him with the tail of a lead arrow, seemingly checking if this big guy was still alive. "As you can see, little sir, I came back alive." Not rising, Heracles spoke with a calm expression. At this, somewhat surprised, Eros became even more curious. Aren't you surprised? I knew what you were doing and was waiting here ahead of time for you. Perhaps because it went too smoothly for me." Speaking plainly, the great hero said directly, "This is the center of the spirit realm, and before arriving, I had envisioned all sorts of difficulties and dangers. But when I reached here, until I grasped the reflection of that divine mirror, I encountered no obstacles. In all honesty, there must be some reason. And now you, sir, might just be one of those reasons." Brows slightly furrowed, Eros felt immensely disappointed. As one of the love and desire twins, what she loved the most were lively, vibrant emotions. Whether fear, hatred, love, anger, astonishment, or anything else. Falling from the sky, descending into the mortal realm. The sound of the wind howling by the ear, breaking through layers of clouds. Pressed against his chest by his own weapon, like carrying a mountain. Mental concentration focused on the wrist for a moment, then shifted away. Since gaining consciousness, Heracles has never been so weak. Because layers of shackles, between tangible and intangible, are binding him, restraining the strength to move mountains. This is the seal of the Divine King, used in the first era to seal the Titans, sparking Mother Earth's rebellion against Heavenly Father. It was also used in the second era to seal the sun, indicating Cronus had gained power over the starry sky. And now it has been applied on a human, naturally achieving a better effect. While the previous two were imprisoned, the Divine King could not ultimately harm their innate powers, but Heracles is different. Though powerful, his strength can't surpass the formidable hecatonkires that even all gods fear. Standing before the ancient sun god, he couldn't compare with the sun. Thus, the rules easily locked him, making him now as vulnerable as an ordinary mortal. So within the depths of conscious thought, the great hero touched that silver halo. It was the divine artifact sent him to Mount Olympus, the imprinted reflection left by the Splir mirror. Because of its existence, Heracles indulged his heart and embarked on the Mount of the Gods with no preparation. As long as it was there, he could return along the way he came. Moreover, besides that, he has one trump card that he has never used, and that is false immortality. Andy told him that this is a ritual that can only be forcefully broken by the primordial gods themselves or powers of equal level. And in the images of that history, the true form of the Divine King had long been trapped in Asgard, after he completed his despicable sacrifice. Violating the oath between gods and humans, abandoning the morality and honor of a god, ultimately did not lead to victory. Upon seeing this scene, Heracles felt nothing but shame. His own bloodline actually comes from such a god, and the other is none other than the king of all gods. Bang! Silver light twisted. The great hero vanished along the path he came, falling into the all-spirit realm. But maybe due to preset rules, even the power of the Splir mirror did not take him back to the original point but rather to the edge of the all-spirit realm. A place of reincarnation, outsiders must not enter. This is the established rule. Falling onto the bluestone-paved ground, Heracles did not move. He gazed up at the 4 spirit moons in the sky, silently digesting all that had happened. You're back!" A voice of surprise. Eros flapped his wings, manifesting his form. Looking at the hero lying on the ground, she poked him with the tail of her lead arrow, seemingly to check if this big guy was still alive. As you can see, Little Highness, I have returned alive. Not rising up, Heracles remained calm. Seeing this, Eros couldn't help but feel a little more curious. You're not surprised. I knew what you went to do, so I was waiting for you here in advance. Perhaps because it went too smoothly for me. Speaking plainly, the great hero said directly, "Here is the center of the spirit realm. Before coming, I had anticipated various difficulties and dangers. But as I walked here, until I held the reflection of that divine mirror, I encountered no hindrance at all. Asking my heart, there must be reasons for this. And now it seems, Your Excellency, you might be one of those reasons." Her brows slightly furrowed. Eros felt very disappointed. As a love and desire twin, she most loved vibrant, high-spirited emotions. Whether it's fear, hatred, love, anger, amazement, or something else. Underworld, the edge. Just before and after Heracles encountered Hebe, the Styx River changed. Holding his lyre, Andy returned to the place he had previously parted from. The doppelganger of the Silence Crown had already been shaken off by him, using a simpler method. That was by directly carrying this object infused with the aura of the Land of Eternal Night through the underworld portal, returning to the edge where the eternal night and nether moon divided. Thus, upon waking from sleep, Cerberus, who had lost the Divine King's mark, bumped directly into a doppelganger of the ancient evil being. A great battle immediately ensued, while Andy retreated. But when he returned here, the puppet naturally did not see any trace of Heracles. Using his authority, Andy tried to glimpse the shadow of the old days. Though many obstacles hindered him, using the ritual he left on the great hero as an anchor point, he still saw a little. For instance, Heracles entered the spirit realm from here, and now he should be in the mortal realm. His head slightly raised, making a slight wooden friction sound. Andy could faintly sense the location of the ritual, which should be near Mount Othrys, but quite a distance from where the goddess of the magic net used to be. He nodded silently, as if obtaining an answer. The puppet was about to leave, when unexpectedly, the Styx River beside him swayed slightly. Water splashed, bubbles rose within. A trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. Andy observed the changes of the River of Oblivion. Among the three most important rivers in the underworld, Styx is undoubtedly the first, whereas Acheron originally was not special, but in recent years has grown increasingly powerful. Unexpectedly, today's River of Oblivion also underwent some change, not continuing to widen the gap with the former. The River of Oblivion has nothing to do with me. His figure gradually blurred. Andy prepared to leave again. However, the next moment, he paused once more, turning to look at the gray plains beside him. "Greetings, Lord Hades, what a rare guest." "You've got it wrong, stranger lord." Dust rose, sand spun, then transformed into a human figure. Hades shook his head slightly, correcting An's words. "As the king of the underworld and the embodiment of the underworld soil, it is you who are the guest upon my body. In fact, if not for the existence of that human, I would have come upon sensing your aura. But now is not too late either." After a moment's contemplation, Hades invited, "Would you be willing to join the underworld?" Startled by the words, Andy had many guesses about the appearance of this underworld king. After all, when he displayed power on the underworld soil, he didn't expect to hide from this deity ruling the underworld. Yet, as Hades said, he wasn't keen on interacting with Heracles and Dionysus. It wasn't surprising that the underworld king wasn't fond of the son of God King. It was just that the other's appearance before him, and even issuing an invitation, truly took him by surprise. "Lord Hades, did you mistake my identity?" In a kindly reminder, Andy revealed a slight nature of his strength. "I am not an innate deity, but a faith god. To the Olympian gods, I am known as the evil god, or malicious god. Being a part of the divine court, inviting me may not be very appropriate, right?" "There's nothing inappropriate." Shaking his head, Hades explained, "If you were a normal innate god, you likely wouldn't be willing to join the underworld system either. Precisely because you are a faith god, I believe there is room for cooperation between us. You crave faith, whereas I desire the overall growth of the interfaces. Neither should contradict. What do you say? Would you consider it? Your condition doesn't seem like that of a normal deity, so you likely wouldn't mind the underworld's environment either. You should be aware that soon, Zeus will have increasing control over the mortal realm. Eventually, there will be no place for you. Leaving early could be a choice destined for you. Silent without words, listening to Hades, Andy had to admit there might be some truth to what he said. Indeed, if he were an ordinary faith god, he'd likely be fearful of the rising power of the Olympus god king. Under such circumstances, an invitation from the reclusive underworld king wouldn't be a poor option. Yet the underworld now begins to be under the god king's control, not to mention faith gods, even you aren't safe. Andy questioned, but Hades seemed unworried. If you're willing to join the underworld, you will learn eventually. But before that, I cannot elaborate. I understand. With a slight nod, Andy didn't ask further and decisively refused. Sorry, Lord Hades. I have no intention of joining the underworld at the moment. After all, aside from other concerns, as one of the drama spreader, the first puppet master, origin of the minstrel, I have a continuous stream of faith, able to sustain a divinity level of 6 or above. This is an internal rank among us faith gods. In this situation, even if the mortal realm is completely occupied by the god king, I can hide within the divine kingdom without fearing his influence. So if there's nothing else, please allow me to leave. The underworld, Edge. Just before Heracles met Hebe, before the changes in the Styx River happened. Holding a lyre, Andy returned to the place parted before. The avatar of the Silence Crown had already been shaken off by him in a simpler way. That was carrying this item imbued with the aura of the land of eternal night directly through the underworld's portal, returning to the edge divided by eternal night and the nether moon. Thus, when awakened from slumber, discovering the loss of the divine king's mark, Cerberus directly ran into the avatar of the ancient evil being. A fierce battle immediately unfolded, while Andy made his retreat. However, when he came back here, naturally the puppet didn't see any trace of Heracles. Exerting his authority, Andy tried to peer into the shadow of the old days. Though faced with many hindrances, using the ceremony left on the great hero as an anchor point, he still saw a little. Like Heracles entering the spirit realm from here, and now he should be in the mortal realm. Head slightly tilted upward, a little creaking sound emitted from the wood. Andy could faintly sense the location of the ceremony, which was somewhere near Mount Othrys, yet far from the place where Goddess of the Magic Net had formerly stayed. Silently nodding, as if he had received some answers. Just as the puppet was about to leave, unexpectedly, the Styx River nearby shook slightly. Waters swirling, bubbles rose. A hint of surprise flashed in Andy's eyes as he observed the change in the River of Oblivion. Among the 3 most important Styx rivers in the underworld, Styx is the undisputed first. While Acheron originally held no particular significance, yet in recent years, it's grown increasingly powerful. Unexpectedly, today's River of Oblivion also followed with some changes, not widening the gap from the former further. The River of Oblivion has nothing to do with me. His figure gradually blurred, and Andy prepared to leave again. But in the next moment, he stopped once again, turned towards the gray plains on the side. Lord Hades, quite unexpected. You said it the other way, this unfamiliar lord. Gray earth risen, flying sand world, then transformed into a human figure. Hades shook his head slightly, correcting Andy's phrasing. As Hades, also the embodiment of the underworld, you are the one who's come to a guest upon my body. In truth, if not for that human's presence, I would have come at the moment I sensed your aura. Yet, it's not too late now. Pondering for a moment, Hades invited, I wonder if you'd join the underworld? Startled by the words, Andy had speculated much about the presence of this Hades. For when he displayed power upon the underworld, he never imagined being able to conceal from the deity ruling the underworld. Yet, as Hades suggested, he's not inclined to interact with Heracles and Dionysus. It's not odd for Hades to be not fond of the son of the divine king, but for the counterpart to appear before him at last and extend an invitation indeed caught him by surprise. "Lord Hades, did you not mistake me for another god?" Gently reminding, Andy revealed a wisp of essence of his power. "I am not an innate deity, but a later faith god. In the mouths of the Olympian gods, labeled as evil god and wicked god, as a member of the divine court, sending me an invitation might not be appropriate, don't you think? There's nothing wrong with that." Shaking his head, Hades explained, "After all, if you were a normal innate god, you probably wouldn't want to join the underworld system. It's precisely because you are a faith god that I think we have room for cooperation. You yearn for faith while I yearn for the overall growth of the interface. These should not be contradictory. So, what do you say, would you consider it? Your state doesn't seem like a normal deity. You probably wouldn't mind the underworld's environment, right? You should be able to see that in the near future, Zeus' control over the mortal realm will grow stronger. Eventually, there will be no place for you and yours. Leaving sooner might be a choice imbued with destiny." Silent and speechless, listening to Hades, Andy had to admit that he seemed to have a point. Indeed, if he were a common faith god, he might be terrified by the increasing might of the Olympus god king. In such a situation, if the secluded Hades offers an invitation, it might not be a bad place to go. But the underworld has already begun to come under the divine king's control, not to mention faith gods. Even you are hardly safe yourself. Andy questioned, but Hades seemed indifferent. "If you are willing to join the underworld, you'll know afterwards. But before then, please forgive me for not being able to tell." I understand." With a slight nod, Andy stopped asking and decisively refused. "Regrettably, Lord Hades, I do not plan on joining the underworld for now. After all, regardless of anything else, as drama spreader, the first puppet master, one of the origins of the minstrel, I possess a wealth of faith that at least supports a divinity level 6 or above. This is an internal ranking among faith gods. In such a situation, even if the mortal realm is entirely occupied by the divine king, I can hide within the divine kingdom without fearing his power. So, if there's nothing else, allow me to take my leave." Unable to obtain an answer to the question, Prometheus chose silence in response to N's inquiry. Yet often, silence itself is an answer. Thus, despite the shocking truth, the puppet had no choice but to believe. He, Prometheus, although not like the tales in the mortal world, does not hold a prophecy concerning the succession of the divine king. Yet he absolutely knows what matters could cause immense harm to that ruler of gods, who transcends even the true God. As for what this method is, Andy found it hard to guess, only knowing it likely relates to Heracles. Therefore, Prometheus's assistance all along was both to repay the other party's aid and to fulfill his own desires. And apparently, even though Heracles already possessed such power before, he was far from meeting his expectations. What is he still lacking? Andy asked. A heart that recognizes who he is. With a smile, the wise sage slowly replied. Este es el final de la parte 1, y descarga la aplicación Webnovel para continuar.